I use a rather fancy camera and a fancy microphone on my computer, even just for Teams calls, because I'm fancy that way. But there is a problem. It's quite subtle, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. And it is that if you pay attention, you'll see that the speech that I'm speaking is not lined up exactly with the movement of my lips. There is a slight offset between those two things. That's because the external Sony camera that I'm using, as would be the case with basically any camera, takes a fraction of a second to output its signal, what it's seeing, out over its HDMI connection and thus into my Mac via an interface. The latency, that delay with audio, the microphone is much lower. And so the audio is arriving at my computer slightly before the video. The way we solve this basically is to use a couple of bits of software from Rogue Amoeba, a combination of Audio Hijack and Loopback, to create a virtual microphone that does some other things as well, but that importantly adds a slight delay to the audio so that things sync up. And in fact, talking of things syncing up, I fixed this in post for you so that now things are lined up properly. This was me fixing this in Final Cut. This is not like this in real life. So we can use those two bits of software from Rogue Amoeba to add a slight delay to the audio coming in from this microphone to resynchronize it with the video. But how do we know what that delay should be? Well, you can guess it by just sort of doing it until it looks roughly right, but we can actually calculate it now as well. And we can do that because before in my setup, I was using a HDMI capture card and a separate XLR interface for the microphone. And so there was no way to reconcile those two things together except with some slightly shonky Heath Robinson style clapperboards I made in the video that I'll link below on this channel. But now that I'm using the Rode Streamer X, that is a device that takes inputs from both the HDMI and the XLR. And the HDMI can also carry with it audio from the camera's microphone, right? So what I can do is I can create a virtual microphone that blends the audio from my microphone here and the microphone on top of the camera into one virtual microphone device, record that in Audition, and make a sharp sound. And in fact, just clicking my mouse is enough. I think that's enough of a sharp sound that I can then create a little bump in the waveform. Then all I need to do is to measure the distance between the peak of those two waves, and we've calculated the offset. That offset we can then punch into one of the blocks in Audio Hijack, and we'll do some other things as well. We'll do some noise reduction in there as well. You could do some EQ too, various things to clean up the sound that's coming from this microphone. And once I've done that, all I need to do is to select that virtual microphone that is the clean and synchronized version of this mic as my input, either at the system level or per app, depending on what I want to do. And then that's it. I don't have to do anything. The video is then synced up with my speech. It does mean that there is a very, very slight delay, obviously, to what I'm saying going out, because I've added that delay to the audio to resync it with the video. But that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make in order for these things to be lined up again. So I've put on screen just now the values for that offset that I've calculated for the Sony ZV-1 and the camera I'm using now, the Sony ZV-E10. I don't know if these will be the same depending on your particular setup, but they should be, or at least they should be close enough. And so if you're struggling with an offset and a synchronization issue between your speech from an external camera and an external microphone, if it's one of those two cameras, that's what the offset probably is. And if it's a different camera or microphone setup, that's at least how I solved it. If you've got a better solution or a more elegant solution, let me know in the comments below. For me, the thing that would really make my life lovely is if the Rode Streamer X itself could both apply and calculate that offset. So it has been done in hardware. I didn't have to have software running on the computer, which adds complexity and points of failure. But it is working currently, and I'm very happy.